Journeys Ahead 2 Lineage Chapter 7 Blood, Sweat, and Scrapes. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Cracking open his eyes, Void awoke within his cozy, warm little bed with Jida and Povnu at his side. The three of them had all crashed out after yesterday's events, which still felt to keep Void's mind in a chokehold. He would have thought it to have all been a lucid dream, if it weren't for the blue electrical energy that faintly pulsated underneath his skin. Void was now donned in a white t-shirt and black shorts, while his wife and Fox daughter wore similar outfits in their sleep. Fuzzy pajamas, to be more clear. Whew. Conductor Day. The Spark family whispered to himself as he quietly sat up and brushed Jida's faint glowing hair to be out of her eyes. She was so beautiful in Void's vision. Although pretty, her face had definitely been filled with that of stress. Having to carry an infant for so long without a doubt weighed heavy on her physical and mental health. But like always, she persisted, like any other flame in a winter's night. Leaning over, Void kissed his wife on the cheek, and then the side of her stomach, making her crack a smile mid-slumber. Turning to his side, Void set his eyes upon Povnu, who was sleeping in a jumbled position. Her right arm was behind her head, her left leg was bent up into a knee, while all of her tails lay fluffed out in every possible way. Slowly leaning down again, he went to kiss the fox on her head too, but stopped as she suddenly spoke with closed eyes. "Don't even think about it." Halting and lifting himself back up, Void raised an eyebrow before fully standing upright. "Sorry, I didn't know you were awake." He apologized through a whisper before rubbing her bedhead of hair instead. "Going to help Core and the others today?" Povnu gently questioned as Void fully got off the bed, tapped his arm, and summoned forth his newly acquired Sparkborn armor. "Yep. You and Mom gonna help Mr. Sankson track down some of those escapees?" Void replied as he transformed his arm into its portal opener. "Yep. Uncle Nuck and Cot want to try out the thumper. Should I be worried?" Povnu asked as she cracked open one of her pink glowing eyes. "Just worry about your mother. Make sure she doesn't get in and over her head." Rearing his arm around, Void shot open a portal to the Reformattor's location, creating a bright blue shine to fill the room that was always a comfort to see. "I will. Love you, Spark Dad. Be careful." Povnu bid farewell as she too sat up and began to rub her eyes with a smile. "Love you too, Pumpkin." Void returned with a smile of his own before crossing through and entering the massive ship, albeit still a little tired. "Hey, I'm back. Unless yesterday was all a fever dream and I'm hallucinating again." Void called out as he entered before the large matter vat. Standing around its mixture of hazes was Core, Matira, Joby, Atlas, Evelyn, Talos, and Cogson. The others of which seemed to be off somewhere else within the Reformatter. "Uncle Void!" Joby squealed with glee as she turned heel, Cyclope down, and ran full sprint into the Spark's arms. "Oh, hey, kiddo," Void exclaimed as the little Sparklet continued to laugh and squirm in his arms. "Novason, welcome back," the goddess of the Sparks greeted as she beckoned the blue one over with her dark matter-drenched hand. "Void, come here. You gotta see this." Core then boasted as Mr. Cogson shouted too. "Your world is crazy powerful, dear boy. Crazy powerful." Raising his eyebrow, Void marched his way to stand before everyone, but stopped in awe as Core clicked a button upon the control pad and revealed a diagram of Earth. Spark text climbed up and down this hologram's 3D design form, displaying numbers and all kinds of scientific terminologies. Through it all, Void was able to read the main focus of the image, a bold statement in yellow that read, M levels, 98%. Void, you're not gonna believe this. Your world is unlike anything we've ever seen before. The matter readings are nearly off the charts. Core shouted while reaching a hand over and shaking Void's shoulder. What does that mean exactly? The smaller spark inquired. Earth, my dear. It would appear it has matter levels that go beyond most other planets, let alone realities. Reaching a hand out, the god has changed the image of the world to be zoomed in, showing several icons that flashed upon different parts of each continent. Once all the conductors are retrieved, we will have enough power to collect the data essence that is needed. With that energy surge, we can bring back the sparks, once and for all. Jaw-dropping, Void glanced from Matira and then to his fellow Sparks, who all nodded their heads and smiled with positive expressions. Are you serious? Earth? Void asked with a smile, making Core snicker in place. Indeed, little brother. But we gotta get those conductors back first. Tapping the holographic image, Core expanded it and zoomed in upon a continent just below the one they were all within now. Void and the rest were stationed within North Trianica, while the focal point before them was upon South Trianica. It would appear that the nearest conductor that's reaching a critical level is in a city called Leo de Sanrico, codenamed Hercules. Core elaborated, as his happy expression then faded into a more serious tone. Leo? Me and Jida went there for our honeymoon. Void said aloud, just as he felt the large foot claw of Atlas rest upon his shoulder. Awesome! Maybe you can show me around. The big spark cackled, making Void and Joby look up to him. The rest of us have to run some tests on the ship. Atlas here, though, wants to be out first and foremost. Would it be alright if you two went and got the conductor? Core asked. Absolutely. Void replied, as he set Joby back down to play with Gluppy.
Just stay out of trouble, Atlas.
Evelyn asked with the tone of an angry wife that made the green spark chuckle under his breath. Don't worry, babe. I won't be too much of a nuisance. With a flick of her wrist, Matira opened a portal for Leo that shimmered beautifully in a golden haze of light. Good luck, you two, and be careful, Core asked as Void and Atlas began to march their way through. We will. See you guys later, Void exclaimed as he and the larger spark crossed through to a very warm, sunny, lit world. Emerging out of the portal and atop a confetti-covered rooftop, both Void and Atlas found themselves in a very beautiful and stunning environment. Leo de Sanrico was the second largest city in the world, is what Void recalled, just a little bit smaller than Aurora's massive double sector. Before their eyes, the two sparks bear witness to the city that sat between tropical mountains and the sapphire-glowing sea. A multi-mile-long beach stretched across the city's front, before leading to an array of skyscrapers that descended into smaller buildings and little huts for homes. Void and Atlas found themselves to be atop one of these front skyscrapers, allowing for them to see their surroundings in full. Below on the streets, hundreds of flipside humans all partied within an array of parades and festivities around them. The people themselves, like Kot, all had floating upside-down heads, yet were all multicolored in appearance. The men wore dazzling attires, while the women all either had gorgeous floral dresses or danced in feathered, peacock-looking outfits within the parades. To say the least, the two sparks were astonished. Man, I freaking love Leo! Void loudly expressed as he watched a sea of confetti fly through the air. What's going on? Some kind of party? Alice asked as he admired the beauty of Leo, watching the people dance, play on the beach, and overall have an incredible experience below. Leo is famously known for its carnivals. They do it twice a year, this being the first for Christmas, and the other will be for New Year's. Void explained before turning and looking out over the rest of the city, with a nostalgic haze in his eyes.
I see. You've come here before, right?
Alice inquired as he opened his arm and brought forth a holographic map. Yeah, like I said, me and Jida came here for our honeymoon. This place is a real treat, I tell ya. Incredible people and culture. The spark expressed in a ramble before eyeing Alice's map. But I'd rather it stay joyous instead of fearful. I'm assuming you're tracking the conductor? Void speculated, just as Atlas pointed forwards.
A few miles east. Looks like it's near this casino.
The larger spark stated, before zooming in on a large dome building that had the words Sanrico Goods plastered above it. I see. Looks like we'll have to cross through the parade to get there. I don't want to waste a good portion of my portal energy, and neither of us can jump between these falls. If we were to fly, we'd use up all our energy too. Void listed as he gestured to everything around him.
You sure you want to walk through the parade? I may cause some,
Alice asked, gesturing towards his legs, with the thought of them maybe scaring people. Please. You didn't bother anyone in Aurora. Besides, the people of Earth are friendly and accepting. And they may take it that you're wearing a costume. Void assured before shooting a smaller transport portal into the roof below, one that led into a lower alley.
If you say so. Perhaps we can exchange some stories along the way. I'm still curious on how you exactly stopped those monsters that destroyed our world.
Alice expressed with a smug look before hopping through, with Void following close behind. Exiting the portal and slowly leaving the alleyway with peeking gestures, both Void and Atlas swiftly and seamlessly joined in with a crowd of moving people that all either danced, sang, or partied from all sides. The music was spry, and the vibes were truly that of a joyous occasion. Fireworks exploded off in the sky, while parade floats of birds and other animals drifted on by within the nearby streets.
Enjoy the party!
One of the upside-down faces and said, before donning Void with a necklace of blue beads.
Enjoy as well! Great outfit too!
They continued, tossing up a set of green beads to Atlas, who awkwardly found it getting lassoed around one of his horns. What'd I say, huh? Void snickered with a smirk, as Atlas awkwardly took the beads off and pocketed them into his arm hatch.
You stand corrected. Come on, this way.
Alice boasted, now pursuing the path towards the conductor, with Void following in tow.
So, you and the missus really stopped those freaks of nature for good?
Inquired the four-legged spark, as the two of them continuously marched forward through the massive crowd of people. Yep, they're gone. I first fought them alone in Salvaheim, which they just took over. But soon we reunited and had a whole hoorah final stand years ago. But me, Jida, and the others, we pulled through. Looking over his shoulder, Atlas snickered before continuing on with sharp clacking steps, having to even avoid a little dog that scampered between his feet.
We had a hunch they nested in Salvaheim. Then again, we didn't go looking for long.
Alice replied, leaving Void to raise a curious eyebrow. Looking for long? Did you and the others go back to Salvaheim at some point? Void asked as he shuffled in between a pair of dancing women.
We did in hopes of seeing if others had survived. Lingering ones, you know. But what we found was just a hornet's nest of those monstrosities. How did you and Miss Flamehead get through all of them anyways?
Alice curiously questioned before finding a clearing to walk through and gesturing for Void to follow. A strange combined form of purple power, to be honest. But again, those things shouldn't come back, if that's what you're worried about. Assured the smaller spark, as the two of them now began to traverse through alleyways and other shortcuts. Now, what about you?
What is old Scrape been up to besides the whole scientific stuff? Void asked as a few parrots flew overhead, looking to sprinkle even more confetti down upon them. Still as much of a pain in the world's ass as I used to be. But I'm doing alright. Just been really focused on the goal, I suppose. Alice replied while the pair entered another sector of the parade, having to scurry through yet another crowd of people. Well, now at least I know not much has changed. How about Evelyn? You two seem to still be together. How's that been? Walking over pedestrians, Alice smirked, lit a cigarette, and then put it to his lips before speaking. Oh, that's Sparkat. I love her as much as the day we first met. I'll be honest, little buddy. Before everything went to hell, our relationship was sort of going overboard. But after the fall of Salvaheim, we've been a glued pair. Alice revealed as memories of a distant past flashed within his mind. Things may be different, but I'd be damned to the shades if I said she wasn't the most important thing in my life. Alice revealed, showing off a softer side to his jokey and cocky nature. If you want me to be truthful, Void, all I want for her is to be happy. She lost a lot of friends and family during the fall. Me, Cor, and the rest were all she had left. If this experiment works, then perhaps she'll fully smile again. Nodding his head, Void looked forwards with an understanding gesture before asking, That's the sweetest thing I've ever heard you say, Atlas. But what of you? What are your thoughts on all this? I won't deny in saying that I'm a little mixed on the mission. Void questioned, wanting some more validation for the concept in resurrecting the sparks. Look, I won't deny in saying that what we plan to do sounds insane coming out of our mouths. But look at what we've done! Show me, Void! Alice exclaimed with a slight tonal shift in his voice. However, only for a mere moment. If we can somehow crack the code and arise sparks like her without the need of regular DNA, then I think we should at least give it a shot. We survivors alone won't be enough to restart the sparks through natural means. So it's either all or nothing, you know? Alice reasoned as the two took notice of the casino in the distance. I suppose you have a point. I'm all for it too, don't get me wrong. But it just seems kind of dangerous in some spots. Void returned as the two sparks gazed at one another. Kid, I'd be lying if I were to tell you that I wasn't worried. I am. But Matira, you know, the gods, the stories of her, she's a miracle worker. I have to trust her judgment. Alice reasoned before being pinged to the conductor's location, where it was somewhere within the casino to both Atlas and Void's dismay. Uh-oh. Alright, kid. Hope you show me what you're capable of, because we gotta work fast. Alice expressed before turning down an alleyway with Void in tow. Feels just like old times. Just instead of playing hide-and-seek with Cor, Sika, and Evelyn, we're searching out a matter monster. Void chuckled as Alice began to leap up the side of the wall. I like your sense of humor, kid. But I'm gonna scout above and track this thing's exact coordinates. You think you can get inside and see how many people are in there? Alice asked as he reached the top and looked down upon Void. It'll take another portal, but I can get in no problem. The spark called back before looking towards the casino and shooting another smaller portal into the wall. Ooh, can't go in looking like this. I'll get thrown out. Void said to himself as his attire was unprofessional. Reaching his arm around, he clicked its top, and from this, Void changed his armors of dark blues and grays into that of a black sleek tuxedo to fit the vibe of the rich. If he were to snoop around, he would have to look unsuspicious as well. Perfecto. That won't draw attention. Spark said to himself before crossing through the portal and entering into the massive building. Shuffling in, Void found himself sneakily emerging into the bathrooms of the casino.
They had thankfully been empty, meaning nobody would see his portal. With a sigh of relief, the spark closed the rift behind himself and then made his way towards the exit door, a tall metal plaque that had the men's insignia glinting green upon it. Taking hold of the handle, the spark gently pushed it down and shuffled his way out, entering into what he quickly found to be a non-surprising but worrying sight. Uh-oh, he mumbled upon seeing tons of people. The casino had been dawned in rays of neon blue and green glowing fluorescent lights. The bars were lit up, the slot machines were spinning and clicking, pool tables clacked with 8 balls, and the foul stench of alcohol was at a maximum fume. Waiters and waitresses carried foods and drinks, while the rich and desperate poor sold their bank accounts away to the many contraptions that would have earned them a possible fortune.
Hey, Novason, you hear me?
The sound of Alice's voice spoke through the suit's transformed, now silky armplate that had created a watch. Surprised at this, Void reared his limb up and spoke into the device. 10-4? Pinpoint the conductor? He asked, while beginning to try and stay out of view. Last thing he needed was people to see him talking into his watch.
Yep. It appears to be several meters below your location. Try and see if there's a basement nearby. That could be our ticket lead if so.
Alice mentioned towards Void, who couldn't help but nod his head in response. Gotcha. I'll see what I can find. Void replied when Atlas spoke up again.
Also, if you encounter the beast, use your matter extractor. It comes programmed within the armor.
Raising an eyebrow, Void curiously looked to his free hand before asking. Like the thing Sika had? He asked.
Yes. Use its front spikes to lodge the weapon where the conductor shines its brightest. Pull the trigger, and it will be absorbed into the extractor's capsule port.
Alice boasted, leaving Void to nod his head in response. Huh. Gotcha. Over and out. Void walked with steady steps, passing by rich folk as well as those who could best be described as the living embodiments of melting ice cream. Fat and bulbous people, with balding heads that glinted off the light. It was an uncomfortable place in truth. Nothing felt right within this environment of greed and desperation. It was as though there'd be a contrast in what came from the outside. Pigs and sad lambs, Void mumbled to himself, as he awkwardly maneuvered between people who eyed him with disgust. Looking around with a keen eye, Void examined the walls and all possible surroundings to his disposal, all up until noticing a door that had been labeled with a stair icon. That had to be it, he thought. Found the stairwell. Void whispered into the watch before quietly making his way over. Trying his best to be casual, the spark nodded his head to the waiters and waitresses that passed on by, while even giving double yet awkward finger gun gestures towards a group of people playing poker. Before nearing the door, Void even spun in his steps and took a glass of martini from a passing waitress. Making sure that no one was looking, he took a quick swig and quickly entered the door, slinking in like he hadn't even been outside to begin with. Okay, I'm in, Void exclaimed to his armed speaker whilst dropping the glass and returning his clothes back to their normal armored state. What faced Void was a stark contrast to the casino. Instead of glowing rays of blue and other colors, were instead stone walls and dark gray marbles that descended into a lifeless-looking stairwell, one that got progressively darker the further it went down. Alice, what's your status? Void radioed through his armor plate as he began to descend into the depths of the casino. Coming back through in response was a series of muffled words and static spikes. It appeared that the signal was being lost, either from Void's end or Atlas's. The spark wasn't sure for certain. Alice? Hey, either you or me are cutting out, man, Void stated while he transformed his hand into the matter extractor. It looked just like Sika's, but instead of having a red coat of paint, it was instead blue. Alice? Void asked again, before reaching the bottom of the basement, the very cold
and noticeably dark basement. Guess it's just me for the time being. The Spark muttered to himself while activating both arm cannons and deploying his mother's battle helmet. Coming to life in a blue night vision haze, Void found the basement to be a large storage space for numerous things. Wooden crates, stacks of old stools, and slot machines lined the stone-cracked walls, while also being stationed in between cold concrete floors and dense pillars that held the rumbling floor above. As Void continued to scan the scene, he quickly took notice of something that piqued his curiosity into a newfound state. Near the back wall was a large entrance that led down into an even lower sector of the basement. However, something looked to be very wrong. Coming out from this descent was what appeared to be a growing moss-like substance. Goopy strands of blackish-green wriggling slop seemed to pulsate and bulge upon the floor as well as the walls, bubbling as though to be a crocodile that was sleeping underneath a boggy swamp. Growing weary, Void took a few cautious steps forward, only for the substance from afar to suddenly glow. What looked to be strands of green, glimmering wire or hair pulsated to life within the clumps of goo, completely igniting the basement to life in an almost earthly colored haze. Whoa. Void whispered in awe before retracting his mask, now being able to see because of the green lights. Okay. Taking gentle steps with his weapons raised, Void scanned his surroundings, gawking upon these strange green glows of power that radiated with an almost firefly-like style. The best way to describe it was as if seaweed had been mixed with the juice from a neon green glow stick. The Spark wasn't sure if what he was approaching would be lethal to touch, but in a way, it almost felt as though they had a calming presence. Yet, he of all people knew not to judge things by their cover. Kneeling down just before the descent, Void examined the strange aura of sludge and carefully reached his hand out, curious to see if his matter extractor would react. To his surprise, it actually did. A small little beep erupted from its interior speaker, and then presented forth a holographic diagram, bright with the note, M level, 45%, non-lethal. Caution recommended, however. Huh. Looks like it's here. Don't know how it got under a casino, though. Maybe it started off small. Please be small. Void questioned to only himself before jumping to the sound of his phone ringing. Snapping his head down, Void reached into his pocket and yanked out his cellular device, seeing that Jida was calling him. Sighing with relief, and then swiping his thumb across the screen, the Spark brought the phone up to the side of his head and greeted. "Hello?" he whispered. "Hey, Blue. Sorry, is this a bad time? I just wanted to check in on you." Jida quickly explained, while Void stood in the eerily green glowing world of sludge. "No, it's alright. I'm fine, but I think I'm about to meet another one of our conductor friends." The Spark answered as he carefully walked down another flight of stairs, this one shorter than the other. Whatever energy this one has, it appears to left behind a trail of glowing green slime. It's almost like ectoplasmic goop. Void explained as he reached the middle point of the stairs. "Do you need me to come and help? You know I'm just a warp away, right?" Jada asked as Void reached the bottom of the stairs with a wet plop below his boots. "Freckles, I really appreciate the offer, but what I need you to do is stay with Pofnu and just take a back seat for this one. You and I both know that you aiding us in this could pose a threat to not just you, but our baby." Void explained as he could hear the audible sounds of Jida poking around the workshop kitchen. "But I can defend myself still," she replied with a saddened tone to her voice. I know you can defend yourself, but any action you could take poses a risk. You know this," Void reasoned as he entered further into the strange basement.
It was filled with tons of stored away arcade cabinets, along with even more slot machines, alongside tons of bar stools that were topped with all other knickknacks the casino would have. They were all bundled within a large, circular-shaped room that was covered to the brim in mattermoss. I know, Blue, I know. I just worry the same about you. What if you, without me watching your back like always, Jada sadly muttered as Void stopped in his tracks and took a breath to speak. Honey, I'm gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. The future's bright. Really bright. I promise when I get this conductor put down, I'll come right home without a scratch. Void expressed with a heartfelt set of words before reaching up and holding onto his orange guitar pick necklace. That's a promise I'll make sure comes through. After a moment of echoed silence, Jida replied, sounding reassured to some degree, until ultimately complying with her love's words. Okay, I'm gonna eat and stuff. Long day ahead, I guess, for sitting in a cop car and doing nothing. Jida sarcastically groaned as the audible sounds of a microwave came to life. Smiling at this, Void lowered his head in a nod while feeling a gentle warmth in his heart. He still couldn't believe that he was going to be a father any day now. It made him all the more happy knowing that a bright future was ahead of them. But now, he needed to get back to work. I love you, Jida. I'll see you soon. He finished, holding his necklace close to his heart. I love you too, Void. Be safe. Was all that left Jida's mouth, before all went silent with a simple hang-up. Sighing with a blush to his face, the spark turned his sights back towards the array of glowing green vines and began to maneuver around the room, hoping to find the conductor somewhere within. Perhaps it was just this, Void thought, a large expanse of living moss. Maybe it wouldn't be so much of a hassle after all. Whirling around to a quick scuttling sound, Void aimed his arm cannons with a sudden redeployment of his battle mask. It sounded as though an animal, or perhaps a person, had just ran behind him. But his mask visor read no signatures. Just a bunch of old junk and slot machines were on display for all the eye could see. Hello? The spark asked, right as another sound of movement came from behind. Atlas? Void asked again as he whirled back around, only to see nothing once more. What the hell? The noises of rumbling feet and muffled music boomed on from above, all while the distant cries of pipes and all other interior motors rumbled through the walls. All until the sound came once more, this time approaching with rapid steps from behind. Quickly whirling his head, Void was suddenly met with the sight of the most unusual yet terrifying thing he had seen all day. Running towards him with insectoid-looking green legs came not a creature, but rather one of the slot machines, looking to have taken life by the moss. A singular glowing green eye protruded above the rotating wheels within its confines, being connected to a spiderweb of glowing green matter. The slot from around had seemingly infected the slot machine's base into some kind of uncanny creature, a mixture of ooze and metal, in a way similar to the spark. This is all Void could make out in that moment, for the machine was making a beeline right for him with an extending maw of teeth. What in Matira's name? The spark cried before blasting the thing into chunks of metal, cash, and green glowing slime. From this act, the room suddenly shimmered and pulsated with a surge of this green glowing matter, reacting and responding to the pain dealt upon its extension. Snapping around once more, Void watched as the emerald shining matter bubbled and writhed along the floor and walls, all up until several more slot machines sprouted to life without warning. Bursting out from their lower halves emerged several disjointed spider-looking legs. Eyes popped out of their cabinet tops, while their lower halves split into sharp, crooked teeth, leaving Void all the more concerned with what was happening. Oh my god! He shouted in dread while beginning to open fire. One after the other, a slot machine made its assault,
but fell with a singular blow of ocean blue might. They popped and disintegrated apart with a show of spark fury. Coins and money flew up from the strikes, while others spilled out with the green glowing matter. With one last shot, Void took out the remaining machine that crumbled with a spin of 777s. As it fell, a waterfall of cash spilled from its mouth, until ultimately crumbling into pieces upon the floor. By Darfian's spear! How powerful is this stuff? Void choked out with a panicked breath as he brushed a swab of muck off his shoulder sears. Turning and raising his arm back up, Void began to speak into his armor again, calling for Atlas in a worried manner. Dude, I don't know if you can hear me, but this conductor seems to be some kind of adapting, fusing. It's a moss-like thing. I don't know. Void explained before a new sound caused attention. From behind, an almost tearing, wet slicing noise made its presence known, and it sounded massive. Looking down to his feet, the spark caught the sight of the moss below him, beginning to slither past, looking like water culminating into a drain. It wasn't just below, though. The walls, the ceiling, it had all begun to slink its way backwards, leaving Void to turn around and bear witness to what he was looking for. Taking shape came forth the conductor, codenamed as Hercules. Starting off from the glowing orb that had risen from the moss, a large, beefy, bulky chest quickly took shape around its spherical form with a sickening clasp. Coming out from this chest sprouted a slim waist that slithered into a pair of two massive, bulked-up legs that had what almost looked to be tree roots for feet. A pair of fit arms then bursted out from its shoulder sides, until morphing out hands that extended with green, crystallized claws. With one last sickening pop, it sprouted a large green crystal shard upon its left shoulder, and with it came the head at the front. This conductor's noggin appeared to have been in the shape of an egg. A maw of sharp teeth then opened wide as a pair of glowing green horns akin to a bull sprouted from both sides of its head, as well as below its chin. Ending the transformation came out another crystal, appearing out as one singular eye upon the conductor's dark green, devilish face. With a snarl, the beast slammed its fist upon the ground and roared with a ferocious bellow that blew Void back a few feet at most. This conductor was much larger than Abaddon, both in height and width. Worst of all, it had actual muscles, large and downright steel-looking guns that pulsated with veins of green. Huh. Guess your name suits you. Got any of those 12 labors left to do, or... Void tried joking towards the beast, but only found the thing smashing the floor again and pouncing back in a primal state, looking to charge with its horns at the ready. Oh, I see. You actually have a 13th. That being to kill me, I suppose. Void awkwardly said to himself, as he retracted his blasters and brought forth his fists, charging them with his newfound electricity in preparation for the battle ahead. Charging forward with a burst of energy from its horns, the massive matter monstrosity approached with the speed of a train, mixed with the fury of a gorilla's primal pounce. Countering the attack, Void caught the beast by its horns in a mighty grasp. Digging his heels into the ground, the younger Novazon pushed back with all of his might, before rearing his fist back and smashing it upon the creature's eye. With it came an explosion of bright blue electrical charges. A spray of burning sparks mixed with green sludge exploded outwards from the impact, leaving the beast to roar and stumbled back and away from Void. Clawing at its face and squinting its large green eye, the matter monster re-stood its ground and howled towards Void again. With this, it reared both of its large arms back and then shot them forward with a noticeable, uncanny stretch. Like an elastic band or a toy sticky hand, the beast's arms elongated towards Void with a pair of mighty fists to strike. In reaction, the spark summoned a Nova Rune shield and deflected the attack to the best of his ability. However, he was knocked ferociously backwards into the upper sector of the basement, flying right back up the flight of stairs in a whirlwind of hurt. With a hard smack,
Void hit his forehead hard upon the stairway top, then spiraled down upon the cold floor. If his helmet had been deployed, it would have either been a concussion or worse, death. With a rapid and uncanny form of movement, the massive creature extended its limbs like a spider mixed with that of a leech, sliding up the stairwell until barreling out upon Void with an unhinging jaw. Eyes widening, the spark quickly rolled out of the way in a backward somersault, leaving the Hercules knockoff to smash its fist down upon where Void had been seconds ago. "Man, you're fast!" he cried before opening his new chest hatch and releasing a wave of electrified missiles upon the beast. In a set of bursts and pops, the creature's thick hide exploded apart in some crucial areas, clearing the way open for the glowing aura of energy within its chest. "There it is," the spark said to himself as he activated the matter extractor spikes and charged forth at the stumbling creature. Leaping up, Void deployed his axe from underneath his wrist and slashed its blade into the beast, using it as a leeway to stay upon its writhing shape. Gazing at the glowing aura within his chest, Void raised his arm back and got ready to strike, but was suddenly taken hold in the conductor's right hand. "Uh-oh!" he gruffed out before being thrown hard into the ground with an angered expression. Quickly but weakly standing back to his feet, Void only caught the glimpse of the beast smashing its arm into the ground at its side. As the massive goop collided down, it morphed and fused with its surrounding area, creating what could only be described as a wrecking ball of junk. Turning in a violent spin, the conductor swung the ball to the side, attempting to crush Void in its violent display of power. Within the nick of time, the spark flipped out of the way, then again, as Hercules swung the junk ball back and around for a second time. At impact upon a wall, it crumbled apart to outdated machines, returning the beast back to its original form. "Mercy, mercy," the monster growled out, taking Void by sudden surprise. "Mercy, no promise." The conductor, it was trying to speak, but fumbled with words that only sounded to be gibberish. "Excuse me?" Void asked as his defense lowered for a moment. Perhaps he could talk the creature down, maybe ease its anger. At the same time, Void couldn't help but wonder what exactly had his fellow Sparks had done to create these conductors. This was true energy having taken form in a way he had never seen before. When all this was dealt with, the Spark would ask his brother about these things, for something now felt to be off. Turning itself at an angle, the conductor growled with an accompanying glow to the large crystal jutting out of its shoulder. Then, it happened again. From its green shine emerged a Nova rune, one charging up with another blast akin to Abaddon. Void was in shock as he summoned a rune back to defend himself. These beasts, these energy sources, the others weren't lying. They were dangerous and powerful. It was as though they were in some way, shape, and form Sparks themselves. As the blast came, Void expected to be blown back as with Abaddon. But before that could happen, Atlas suddenly leapt in from behind with his own lime green Nova rune at the ready. Landing in front of Void, the larger spark deflected the blast back upon Hercules with a reversal strike of energy, hitting it hard in the chest with a deafening wail. "Kid, you okay?" Atlas cried as the Nova beam ceased fire from the now scrambling Hercules. Yeah, I'm alright," Void answered as he now deployed his Nova blades at his sides. "Was wondering when you'd show up," the smaller spark exclaimed as both him and Atlas watched the conductor stand back upon its feet and beat its chest as an intimidation display. "Had to sneak in through the back, hold the lost janitor approach," Atlas quickly explained as he and Void eyed their adversary, who glared back with a sense of hatred in his soul. Deploying his dual-bladed katana, Atlas got ready to strike, until the unexpected happened. Without warning, the conductor rose its head up and took a massive leap, bursting through the upper floor and entering into the main hub of the casino. "Scrap!" Both Void and Atlas cried as they extended their limbs and pulled themselves up through the hole, landing side by side within a now panicking and terrified casino residents. The large matter beast, to the Spark's dismay, was now thrashing things aside, throwing over stools, pool tables, and tons of slot machines as it made a hard dash towards the nearby wall. Using its horns, the large bull of a creature burst its way out and into the open, sending both Void and Atlas to quickly move on their toes. "No, no, no!" screamed the larger Spark as Hercules now began to sprint down the dense city streets, before suddenly curling up like an armadillo and rolling like a speeding tire down the road. "Come on!" Atlas shouted out as he sprinted out of the casino and began to leap upon building sides with a sudden pulse in his spike-tipped feet. "I'll take to the skies!" Void called as he slid out of the casino and eyed two nearby telephone poles. "Gotcha!" Atlas called as he began to leap between buildings with powerful surges of his spark energy, which seemed to have been from his Sparkborn armor gift. Shooting his forearms forward, Void took hold of the telephone poles and pulled himself back, and then, just like many times before, launched himself up into the air. Once he did, he summoned his wings and blasted ahead, rising high and above the partying streets below. "Glad to see you got some wings!" Atlas shouted as the blue spark eyed the beast through his visor. "Thanks! Was your inner Sparkborn jumping? We could have actually hopped those skyscrapers, man!" Void retorted as the two gave chase towards the conductor that was violently rolling down the street. The people who were standing by suddenly panicked at the sight of this massive creature barreling towards them. Festival attendees dove out of the way, while others ran in any possible direction from the massive blob of snot that rushed upon them. To the Spark's dismay, the Matter Beast held no remorse for the hours of work and care that had been put into many of the beautiful floats. With a massive pulse and energy, the creature sped up and plowed through the massive sets of papier-mâché. Stacks of colors and splinters of wood went in all directions, hitting a few of the upside-down-faced civilians, but thankfully leaving them alive. Void and Atlas knew that if they didn't do something now, it would leave the threat to that wide open. "Atlas! The conductor piece is within its chest. How do we get it out of its Quickster the Muskrat wannabe spin dash?" Void asked aloud as he soared around buildings and turned at sharp angles around corners. "We're gonna have to slow its form. The only way I can think of possibly doing that is if we drag it to a stop." Atlas speculated as he leapt forwards and in between buildings from behind. "Sounds dangerous," the younger Spark replied as the beast suddenly spun up the side of a building, then launched itself from the roof, all until descending back down with a mighty crash upon the large parade below. "Not as dangerous as that thing. You take the right, and I'll take the left," Atlas commanded out as both him and Void evaded the now glass-shattering skyscraper and descended back down towards the panicking busy streets below. As Atlas landed, he slowed his fall by diving into a somersault to the shock of those he passed by. Once finding his footing, he leapt once more, but with this, he transformed in an unusual way. The sharp ends of his front and back left side spiked legs suddenly connected to one another in an interlocking formation. The same thing then occurred upon the right side. Both sharp halves interlocking before his shortened height landed upon the streets below him. Once impact came, Alice's lower half suddenly shifted sideways, and to the surprise of Void from above, Alice's interconnected foot shards began to ignite with energy, rotating his long, slender legs to act like wheels. The cocky and joking Spark had practically turned his lower half into a motorcycle that was gaining upon the creature fast. Diving down below, Void watched as Atlas shot both of his arms forwards and lashed his metal mitts around the conductor's horns at its sides. Doing the same, Void shot his arms out too and took hold of the right side horn. Pressing his boots down, Void, next to Atlas, who was rolling, slid across the pavement as though he were surfing upon the waves. "Move out of the way!" he cried to civilians as his blue armor pelts bristled in the quickly passing wind. With both hands on deck, Atlas reverted his legs back to normal and rammed his spiked tips into the ground. A trail of cutting stone and chiseled debris spewed up from behind his act as both the Sparks pulled with all their might to slow the beast down. With yet another howl of rage, the Matter Goliath reverted itself back into its natural brutish state and found itself in a world of distress. The beast continued the sprint, but the Spark found themselves growing ever closer to victory. Slowly retracting their arms, both Void and Atlas began to close in upon Hercules. At the same time, Void released his right arm and activated the extractor of the light with a buzz of blue power. "Almost there!" Void called as Atlas continued the pull.
Keep your helmet on, kid! We're not out of this yet!
Screamed the larger spark as the monster made its next move. With a sudden leap, Hercules jumped from the streets and onto the side of a tall skyscraper, one that went up higher than most. Digging its claws into the metal and glass, the matter monstrosity began to rapidly climb and drag the two sparks with it in its ascension.
Hang on, kid!
Atlas shouted with a crack to his voice as the two of them smacked against the large panes of glass and went dragging upwards to the world above, all up until the beast made its landfall upon the roof, where Atlas made his move.
Enough!
He shouted before tackling the beast with an extension in his legs. Crashing while letting go, Void rolled across the stone roof while Atlas began to rapidly restrain the monster. Without wasting a second, he rose his front legs forward and stabbed them through the monster's green-clawed hands, pinning its front half down in place. Atlas then raised his back legs and rammed them through the creature's ankles, resulting in its complete cease in movement. But Atlas wasn't done. Pulling out his katana, the spark split in two and ran both of its blades deep into the head of the monster. As it bellowed a rageful cry, Atlas pulled the monster's head back to expose the conductors within its chest that was now pulsating with hatred.
Void! Do it now!
Atlas cried as the spark quickly scrambled to his feet.
Hang on!
Void shouted back as he approached the two of them with an electrical pep in his step. Rearing his arm back, Void activated the matter extractor once more and lunged upon Hercules. The beast roared in pain rage as Void, without wasting another second, ran the blades of the extractor into the beast's glowing chest. In response, the monster fully screamed and fought against its restraints, fighting so hard that even Atlas struggled to hold it back. Yet, as Void prepared to pull the trigger, he heard a familiar sound, one that he knew all too well. The monster made a deep and low guttural sound of an energized charge, the same expulsion as all sparks could do once releasing rage. The glowing veins beneath its body shimmered with an almost lime hue, as the crystallized horns atop its head and gem upon its shoulder began to pulsate like a beating drum. It was only when it had been too late when Atlas and Void realized it. Before the two could even react, they dropped all the way down until crashing upon the paper floats of animals below. Slowly opening his eyes to smoke and debris, Void couldn't help but squint as the sun above glinted into his eyes with a sour sting. His arms, legs, really his everything, hurt in that moment. But thankfully, he was alive. People ran past his armored form, all panicking as to what had been happening. With a grunt, the spark slowly rolled and stood upon his hands and feet, coughing hard and intensely as the feeling of a stinging sensation coursed across his back.
Oh my god! Kid, you alright?
Atlas worriedly asked aloud as he appeared from the dust and helped Void stand properly. The larger spark was both dented and bruised. Even his battle helmet had a small crack in it from the fall. Yeah, I've been through worse, Void replied before the two of them turned their sights upon the slowly standing beast, which growled in a furious expression. The three of them were in the middle of a road, the beach and sea to their left, while the city remained tall upon the right. Rubble lay in waste as two parade floats rested upon their sides beside the matter beast that stood and howled in rage towards the two sparks. Readying themselves, Void brought forth his larger battle axe, while Atlas recombined his katana in place. Raising his arms up and slamming them down, Hercules began to dissolve pools of matter moss in the two tiger floats, in turn bringing them to life to the dismay of Void and Atlas. With their foam eyes turning green and papier-mâché bodies being suddenly wrapped up in dark green tendrils, the two tigers tore themselves away from their floats and leapt to the ground, both hacking and snarling with the same noises as the conductor. The big guy himself now had smaller arms due to expelling some of his energy, but it was now a 3v2. And Atlas and Void felt all but screwed in the heat of the moment.
Scrap!
Atlas gruffed out as the monsters attacked. pouncing with a pair of ear-deafening roars. Both tigers went to snap upon Void and Atlas, but the bigger of the sparks quickly stood in front of the smaller and slashed at the large cats with his katana. "Void, I'll deal with the kitty cats. You deal with the big one." Atlas mellowed as he began to slash and strike upon both tigers, even performing the same hand-foot turret maneuver he pulled back in Salvaheim's fall. "Yes, sir!" Void responded before running around the chaos and rushing upon Hercules. Summoning a surge of power into his legs and hands, Void swung his axe down and propelled off the ground towards the monster, delivering a powerful, bone-snapping punch to its face. A sharp explosion of blue came off the monster's form, as the spark delivered his titan-bowing blow. Yet, before the monster could retaliate, Void spun midair with a heel kick and slashed his axe that gave the monster a nasty cut across its face. Bellowing in another pained scream, Hercules quickly began to swing its arms from left to right, leaving Void with the only option to dodge and evade like a cat prancing around a rabid dog. He leapt and spun away from lethal strikes, all until ending with the monster smashing its fist into the ground once more, causing an uprising of moss to shoot from the ground. With another swift maneuver, Void summoned his wings and blasted upwards in a high leap, all before crashing back down upon the monster with another nasty kick. On the other side of the fight, Atlas leapt and spun out of the way from the sharp claws and tail swipes from the two felines. They both slobbered with nasty black drool and clamped with the force of a truck colliding into a wall. Snapping downwards, one of the cats pounced towards Atlas and slid across the floor, getting fairly close. Taking his chance, the largest spark reared around and rammed his katana into the head of the monster and ignited it to life with a wave of powerful green energy. Atlas had figured since the creatures were made of paper mache and wood for the most part, they would be easily flammable. And to his relief, they were. Like a firework exploding upon the 4th of July, the infected float's head erupted into a fury of flames, leaving it to stumble and screech until ultimately falling to its demise. In reaction, Hercules howled in pain from its energy being burnt to a crisp. The monster stumbled for a moment because of this, leaving Void to tap back in with his own attacks. With a slash in his axe, and a series of right hooks and left hooks to its face, Void smashed the creature's skull in with the fury of a true Spark warrior. Matter spewed from both the left and right, up until Void reared back down and stabbed the extractor into the beast's chest once more. In response, the monster shot a tendril from its open wound and knocked Void back several feet, all the way till crashing into the other tiger and knocking it upon its side. Seeing his chance, Atlas approached again and stabbed the float in the side of its neck. He was shouting aloud, "Void, move!" Reaching out with one of his legs, Atlas pulled Void off the cat as it too exploded into a fury of flames, killing the matter within and leaving Hercules to bellow and stumble in pain again. "It's weakened! Now's our chance!" Void called as he was the first to rush back towards the monster. "Affirmative!" Atlas called as he quickly followed behind. Looking up and seeing its targets, the massive conductor bellowed a shriek of rage and blasted forward another Nova beam. As it neared, both Atlas and Void dove out of the way and slid right towards the monster. Waving its shoulder, they tried to trap the sparks in its beam, but they were way too fast for its weakened posture. Leaping with an electrical uppercut, Void struck Hercules in its lower jaw, brutally snapping its goopy lower half away and spiraling out from the rest of its head. Not even a second after, Atlas performed the same maneuver as before. Both of the monster's hands and heels were stabbed into the ground, but now, Atlas reached downwards and took the beast into a chokehold, all in an attempt to stop it from healing before its extraction. "Now!" Atlas cried, as Void quickly reared his extractor back with a shout and rammed it headstrong into the chest of Hercules. Without another remark or word said, Void pulled the trigger, beginning the spectacular process of extraction. Like a vacuum cleaner, a loud sucking sound erupted to life from the machine. Pulsations of blue electricity buzzed across the extractor's form as a bright cosmic light began to engulf the monster's body. It burned away its exterior and monstrous shell to only leave the orb of power to be seen. The creature screamed and cried for mercy in its own primal way, but before long, its crystal shards dissolved and its melting skin was pulled into the extractor with a blazing white light. Then at last, when the intensity was at its highest, it was done. Like nothing had been there to begin with, the beast that was once Hercules was dissolved into its glowing, energized form within the extractor. Stumbling back, both Atlas and Void caught their breaths as the powerful force of energy inside the device pounded against the glass, before gently reverting back into a misty haze of light, signifying it had been contained.
Hi, Matira. Good work, kid.
Alice expressed as he clenched his abdomen in slight pain, now feeling the adrenaline wear off and the effects of the fall take full effect. Thanks. Void groaned before closing the extractor back into his arm. You did it. High four? Void questioned, raising his hand up for Alice to smack.
Sure, kid. Why the hell not?
The larger spark breathlessly replied before smacking Void's hand in a hunched posture. After that small exchange, the two sparks were suddenly met with cheers and calls of glee, for the people who had been around, watched the whole thing, and had seen the sparks deal with the monster that was terrifying their carnival. To both Void and Alice's surprise, a bunch of these people ran up and began to profusely give their thanks, whilst at the same time beginning the carnival once again. Beads were thrown, flowers were tossed, and unexpected handshakes were given to the two. Void couldn't help but nod his head to these gestures, while Atlas stared in awe towards the sudden love he was getting. No fear, no hate or sorrow, just an array of love and thankfulness from complete strangers. Something he had never really had before.
Void, these people, they're cheering?
Alice asked as a little kid ran up and hugged his leg, leaving the larger spark to just stare, almost sparkle-eyed, to it all. Like I said, these people are accepting. I don't know much of their tongue here in South Trianica, but they're definitely saying thank you. Especially towards you, big guy. Void said, as Atlas was showered with several more beads and thrown flowers. For a long moment, Atlas wasn't sure on what to think. Never in his life had he been shown this kind of love to such an extent. He was always the one getting in the trouble, being cast aside for his odd appearance back in Salvaheim. All he had then was a single, almost non-existent father, along with Evelyn and the Novasons. In truth, it's why he always was so brash and inappropriate. But here, the four-legged spark felt a sense of love that he couldn't describe. All he could truly do in that moment was not give a smile of mischief, but a smile of humbleness.
You're welcome. You're all very welcome.
He chuckled, accepting the love in full. Within the reformator, Core, Evelyn, and the others were busy repairing walls and circuit breakers that had all been buzzing and sizzling with popping electricity. They had been at it all day and were in need of a definite change of pace. Then, like a fairy granting their wish, it came true. With a portal opening, everyone turned with relief as both Void and Atlas marched through, covered in confetti and several beads from those who celebrated their victory. Atlas was even carrying several cakes and goodies that were gifted to him.
Void! Atlas! Welcome back!
Core greeted before retracting a pair of tools into his hands.
What the hell did you two get into?
Evelyn asked as she crossed her arms with a slight hip tilt. We got it! Along with some carnival goodies. Void exclaimed as he rose his arm up with a matter extractor in hand, glowing with its primal green haze.
Excellent! Quickly, this way!
Core expressed as he ran towards the massive matter container within the center of the room. Following suit, Void and the others watched the older Novason open up the canister port, while Atlas was tended to by Evelyn, who looked to retract her own mask and give the tall spark a peck on the cheek.
Right here. Insert the canister into this port. Once in, just pull the trigger again.
Core explained, leaving Void to do as he asked. Core, could I ask you something? Void divulged as he inserted the extractor into the massive control deck.
Of course, Void. Anything.
Pulling the trigger,
Void shot the conductor back into the massive vat, leading to the ship pulsating green for a moment and charging up with yet another positive sound. These conductors you guys created, 2 of them now have used Nova runes, and, well, could you explain to me how that is? Void asked, making Core fall silent for a moment in thought, leaving Matira to appear and speak up. Ah, yes. The use of runes is, well, it's a side effect to their energy source, she explained while rubbing the back of her head. How so? Asked Core's younger brother, noticing the hint of thought behind Matira's eyes. Void. These conductors. As you know, we designed them to be powerhouses in order to keep the massive craft afloat. But in order to do that, they needed a boost of energy. The goddess explained as she gestured towards the large craft around them all. I won't dance around it. You deserve to know. I used a fraction of my own DNA in creating these forms of power. Not the full extent like how Cole and Sika developed Jovi's creation, but rather small sprinkles of my essence, slivers of the magic that remains. The goddess revealed, leaning Void to stare on in an almost understanding expression. Oh, I guess that makes sense. He said with a cross in his arms. It was just meant to boost the future Spark's developmental power source. Little did we know the extent of which my essence would fuse into their artificially crafted structure. In a way, they are like extensions of me. Void couldn't help but stare for the moment. It made sense now, but he still couldn't shake the unease he felt in his soul. Are you sure you know what you're doing, my lady? Void asked, leaving the goddess to just sigh and place a hand upon the Spark's shoulder. I sense you to be a tad conflicted to some degree. Lots of errors were made during these last few years, many that we can ignore, and many that we cannot. But I do know for a fact that we are on the right track to do incredible things. All of us. Matira expressed while mustering a smile. I promise you, it'll all be worth it in the end. Once we find the other conductors, you'll see that there is nothing to fear. We have this under control. She went on while holding a hand to Void's cheek. You do trust me, right, little one? To this, Void looked to his fellow Sparks, most of whom smiled and nodded their heads, except for Talos, who was off to the side looking at some kind of photo. Of course I do. Just a little nervous is all. I don't get these sciencey things that much. Nodding to this, Matira turned away and went back to facing the vat of matter. Listen, I recommend you probably head home to the missus. Me and the others are going to stay up and try and locate the other conductors. It's going to be a long night ahead. Core expressed with a smile to his brother, who just nodded in return. Yeah, I probably should. I'll get out of your horns for a bit. Just make sure you guys really rest up too. Void reminded his brother before smiling and turning. See you tomorrow, big guy, Harmony called, while Lee and the others just awkwardly waved. Hey, kid! Alice called as Void got ready to use his last portal charge of the day. Turning around, he gazed upon the older Spark, who had a relaxed and pleased expression on his face. You've proven to be a great fighter to me today, kid. You've clearly come a long way since your annoying younger years. I'm proud. Alice expressed, making Void smile in return. Thanks, Alice. That means a lot. He solemnly replied, while taking notice of the several beads that swayed around Alice's neck, that the Spark now wore with pride. Just don't get too cocky with it. Alice teased, while winking and making a finger gun point gesture to Void. Smiling, Void nodded his head to the Spark, and then left through this portal, feeling proud of himself.
Slowly ascending the flight of stairs in Nock's workshop, Void did his best to not make that much noise. The sun had set, and most people were tuning in for the night. Nock especially was one to clock in early. That is, unless when he's out with Cot. That on its own was a whole other narrative that Void would rather prefer to stay private. As he reached the last step, the sound of his wife speaking came nice and loud for him to hear, as she closed out her music radio host talk for that night. Jida had been sitting at a makeshift radio station that was stationed within the corner of their shared room. It wasn't much, but the parts were enough to get her voice out there in full. She'd actually managed to gather a solid following. And that, Aurora, will close out tonight's broadcast. For all you wonderful listeners and Woodbeats Prime members, I give you all a very well-deserved good night. I'll catch you all tomorrow at the same time as always. Sleep well, and remember, stay positive. Jida finished as Void walked up from behind and eased his arms around her. You know I really dig that quote at the end. Gotta love positivity. Void said, leaving Jida to smirk and side-eye her husband. Wouldn't have it if it weren't for you. Jida replied before kissing Void on the cheek. How's work, hon? She asked, before spinning around in her chair and embracing her husband. To be completely honest, it was conductor chaos. Void chuckled out as he and Jida gently rocked in each other's arms, both audibly and visibly tired from the long day. I got to go visit Leo, though, Void revealed, in turn spiking Jida's curiosity. What? Why were you in Leo? She asked, while brushing a strand of hair out from her eyes. Long story short, the conductors we saw were scattered across the globe. Turns out your world has a higher matter count than the others. Void explained as Jida stood back and brushed herself off from Pofnu's hairs, seemingly showing that the fox had stayed true to Void's wishes and spent a good chunk of the day with her. You're kidding? Jida asked, leaving Void to shrug and reply back. Nope, he said, leaving Jida to ponder for a moment. Where's Pofnu? Void then asked as he returned his armor into a nightly attire, shorts and a t-shirt. Spending the night at Sangston's, her and his daughter wanted to have a sleepover. Jida explained as she dimmed the lights into a gentle warm glow. I see. How was that today, by the way? With Sangston and all that? Void asked as the two of them got into bed and embraced in a warm snuggle. I pissed him off by touching every button in the car. He has a dog now too, named Ranger. It's a sweet little puppy. She replied whilst tapping her belly. Unfortunately, Morpho's still out there, but we'll get him eventually. Ain't that right, honey? Jida asked down to her belly that illuminated the room like a purple nightlight. As we always do. I think I'll be gone again in the morning, though. There's still a few we need to find, and after the day, we gotta work fast. Because what I dealt with kind of scares me. Void elaborated as both him and his wife touched foreheads. I understand. Please, if you need any help with this, just give me a call. Jida stated while beginning to caress Void's cheek. Of course. He replied as he leaned in and gave his wife a long and desired kiss to her forehead.